you cover the Baltimore Ravens for 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore. And so I guess, we'll start there. When you look at what the Baltimore Ravens either should do or what you think they will do with the 14th overall pick, not used to picking this early, what do you ultimately think is the plan, or what do you think should be the plan for Eric DeCosta and the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Ravens have a best player available philosophy when it comes to the first round. I strongly believe in that as well. You always want to acquire as much talent as you can, and I think the first round is a spot to do just that, to get the best player you can possibly get. I think teams that draft for need in the first round usually run into trouble. I think that's how you end up reaching for a guy that probably doesn't fit the value of the pick. And sometimes the marriage of best player available meets, a need, and that's even better. And maybe that'll be the case for the Ravens. I think for them, they are hoping that one of these guards end up falling to them. I think that they love Ione to fall to them, the guard from Penn State. I don't think that they'd mind if Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon ends up falling to them as well. But they need a new center. Obviously, they just lost Tyler Linderbaum to the Raiders this offseason because the Raiders paid him a fortune. And credit to the Ravens, I mean, they're not going to pay Tyler Linderbaum that type of money. I fully understand that. So, I don't expect a Fano to fall to them. A tackle that can be kind of that hybrid and play inside, or at least is athletic enough to play inside. I think that they'd love for one of these pass rushers to fall down to them. Eric DeCosta, we all remember the Max Crosby trade that was until it wasn't. They go and bring Trey Hendrickson in. But Eric DeCosta at the time said that their plan, or at least they were going to try, to match Crosby and Trey Hendrickson up together, which would lead you to believe, and DeCosta said as much, they're still looking for pass rusher. So I think if one of these pass rushers were to fall to 14, if you believe a lot of the smoke about teams backing off of Reuben Bain, maybe that's something I think that they would love if Reuben Bain fell in their lap at 14. I would be interested to see what happens if Reuben Bain falls to, let's say, 11. Are the Ravens willing to do something uncharacteristic again? Because I think that them trading multiple first round picks for Max Crosby broke tendency for them. That's not something that they typically do. I think they're showing their sense of urgency when it comes to the pass rusher position. So if a guy like Reuben Bain falls to 11, it would not shock me if the Ravens were to try to move up to get this guy, if that is indeed one of the pass rushers that they love. I think a lot of Ravens fans want to see them build up the offensive line because the O-line was the weakest part of their team this year. Lamar Jackson was dealing with injuries all year, and their offense just really never was right. And I think it's because of their issues up front. I think, again, if one of those guards or tackles, the top ones, fall to them at 14, they'll do that. But it wouldn't shock me if they go receiver in the first round or even corner in the first round. I think that they are really looking at whoever is at the top of their board. So could a Jordan Tyson be the guy at the top of their board at the time? Possibly, or Mekhi Lemon, he could be there. But the dark horse, I think, is at tight end Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. They move on from Isaiah Likely, or should I say Isaiah Likely moves on from them. He goes to the Giants. Charlie Kohler goes to the Chargers. They extended Mark Andrews, but Mark Andrews seems like he's trending in the wrong direction athletically. Kenyon Sadiq is that athletic tight end. He can give you some of what Isaiah Likely gave you in the explosiveness. He's a guy that you don't have to make an inline tight end. You can move him out wide as well. So he's kind of my dark horse pick at 14.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's a lot of directions they can go here, Cordell. And I'll never forget, by the way, we had you on the show a month ago as a guest, back-to-back days, because we talked to you about, the whole Max Crosby thing right before it happened. And then, 24 hours later, they basically signed Trey Hendrickson. We had to have you back on. And, you had just gotten done with the Eric DeCosta press conference as well. So that was a freaking whirlwind, man, for you and for Ravens fans and for the Baltimore Ravens themselves. And now, yeah, here we are a month later, and this draft is an interesting one. You talked about how EDC Eric DaCosta, who I think is becoming a polarizing figure for Ravens fans because of the postseason failures they've had. And now, you move on from John Harbaugh, you bring in Jesse Minter. Who's the next scapegoat? Well, that would be the GM that's put together this roster here over the last several years. And you mentioned that he normally goes by best player available. You mentioned the guard from Penn State, Ione. And he's supposed to be a first round pick, but he is also an interior lineman. And so it could be the best pick, best player available, but it also could be the position that you need most after you lose Tyler Linderbaum, maybe the best center in all of football. And, look, I mean, Daniel Falele, that might be addition by subtraction. That guy couldn't block, the wind last year for the Ravens. But the defense was also so unclutch and so loose at the back end with that secondary. And, like you said, Malachi Starks had an up and down season. Kyle Hamilton, can he return to being Superman like he was, in his first 2 seasons in the NFL? Marlon Humphrey's not getting any younger. So it really is going to be interesting what the Ravens do with that 14th pick. Do they just play it safe and bolster the interior offensive line, which you arguably said is the biggest need on this team? But, and again, after you sign Trey Hendrickson, Nnamdi Madubuike hopefully coming back healthy. That was such a painful injury last year. If Reuben Bain is there at 14, do the Ravens pounce on him with that philosophy that he's the best player available, despite what the reports are? Because if we pivot here, transition into Reuben Bain, we kind of see this every year. A couple years ago, you mentioned it earlier in the show. Kenny Pickett, small hands. Was that the reason why he fell to 20 overall? I don't know. Last year it was Will Campbell. There was a lot of speculation on, his short arms. And the Patriots said, screw it, we don't give a damn about that. We're still going to take him in the top 5. He had a pretty good rookie season. Then the playoffs came around and he couldn't block anybody. And now Reuben Bain has short arms, and it's become a huge talking point. So he's slipping down a lot of mock draft boards here. So do you buy into that hype? I think it's kind of stupid. I think if a guy can play, sometimes the measurables don't freaking matter one damn bit. And Reuben Bain was a freaking monster at Miami. So I get it. It's a step up from college to the NFL. That goes without saying. But Reuben Bain is also going to get faster. He's going to get stronger. And he's going to learn how to beat offensive tackles. I don't care how short his freaking arms are. If this guy falls outside of the top 10 or even top 12, I think that's a blessing in disguise for teams like the Ravens or whoever else is there to pounce on him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you got to remember, this is what I like to call lion season. So you're going to get a lot of, when you peel back the curtain a little bit, when you look at these mock drafts, this is usually intel that these guys are gathering from other execs and GMs and scouts around the league. It's not uncommon for some of these GMs, execs, and scouts to maybe not be the most truthful because they have an agenda. And in this case, the agenda could be to drive down the value of Reuben Bain. That's what this reeks of to me, because I'm a guy that always goes with the production over the combine or over the workout and the measurables. This dude's been playing football his whole life. A big reason why the Hurricanes were in the national championship this year is because of Reuben Bain and his ability to get after the quarterback, and he did it in that game as well. That means a lot to me when you're able to, be the guy that leads your unit, when you're able to be the guy that comes through in these big moments, in these big games throughout your collegiate career. I put stock into that. I don't know what it is that when these guys get to the combine and you get their measurable, I think there is a such thing as too much information sometimes. And I also don't think all information is viewed equally. I think when you look at Will Campbell, everybody's using Will Campbell as kind of the case study to go away from a Reuben Bain. Me personally, I think arm length at tackle compared to arm length at the edge rusher maybe is slightly different. I don't think, a edge rusher having the short arms is as bad as a tackle having short arms, at least in my mind. I think that this dude relies on his quickness, and I also think it's about these coaches putting him in the best position to succeed. You have enough tape You have enough evidence to show what he does well and what he struggles in. Put him in positions to succeed. But I pity any team that looks at Reuben Bain and thinks that this dude, his ability can't translate to the NFL level because he's got crocodile arms. I just think he'll still be a menace with these quarterbacks in this league. We've seen it all over the place. I think Reuben Bain will be just fine, and I would be surprised if he does make it out of the top 10.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I mean that's funny you mentioned, and that we mentioned top 10, because you know who picks at 10 is the Cincinnati Bengals, who just lost Trey Hendrickson to the Ravens. And I know they signed Boye Mafe in the offseason, and I think that's a nice pickup for them. But man, imagine losing Trey Hendrickson to the Ravens, and then you don't draft Reuben Bain if he's there at 10, and then the Ravens scoop him up at 14, and they basically take two guys from you in the span of a month, and Reuben Bain then ends up being an all-pro. So I can't imagine him getting past 10, because if he's still there at 10, the Cincinnati Bengals, who have proven many times over the last couple of years that they don't know what they're doing and that they are incompetent in many ways, that would be very Cincinnati Bengals. That would be the Bungles, right? For everybody who likes to take a shot at Cincinnati. That would be very Bungles if they end up passing on Reuben Bain because of the arms and the crocodile arms, and he's got short arms. And then all of a sudden the guy turns out to be an all-pro, just like he was one of the best pass rushers in college football all season long. Cordell, I want to ask you here, who do you think, straight up, regardless of position, because I think this is an interesting topic, who do you think straight up is the best player in this draft? Whether that is just like what they project to be, what they did in college, or the guy that you think will end up being the best NFL player in this draft class. Who do you think that is?
I'm going to go with Jeremiah Love. I think the world of him. And I know we live in a time where running backs, you look at them as a dime a dozen, and I do think the running back position has kind of come back to life a little bit over the last 2 years. But people are still very skeptical on when you should draft them. Now, in the case of Love, I think everybody unanimously understands that this dude is a first round talent. He's a guy that should be taken in the top 5, at latest top 7, by my Commanders if he's there. If they let Jeremiah Love get past 7, then I just don't know what to say about those guys anymore. But yeah, I think Jeremiah Love is the guy pound for pound that is the best player in this draft. I think he's a 3-down back. I think he is great in pass pro. That's something that I think gets overlooked with him because you see all the explosive runs, but I think he is a pretty good pass blocker. He's a good running back out of the backfield with hands. He could catch the ball, make something happen after the catch. He's so strong with his lower body. He's got the home run ability. I just think he is everything that you want out of a football player and out of a running back. So, I'd be shocked if he makes it past Tennessee. And if he makes it past Tennessee, I'd be shocked if he makes it past the Giants with John Harbaugh, even though they have Cam Scatterbo and Tyrone Tracy and those guys out there. I think they'd be licking their chops with Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator, who only wants to run the ball into the ground anyway. If they pass up on Jeremiah Love, I'd be absolutely shocked by that. But again, if he makes it past the Commanders at 7, where they've had their quarterback be their leading rusher his rookie year when they go to the NFC Championship game, and then last year, God bless Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I like him, but if you're putting all your eggs into the basket of a 7th round running back, then I just don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I would be shocked if he makes it out of the top 7, but crazier things have happened.
Well, look, I'm a Giants fan, so Cordell, please, I beg, I hope he falls to the Commanders at 7, because if the Giants take a running back in the top 5 again, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to explode. And I love Jeremiah Love, and I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I would love, in a perfect scenario where the Giants can take Jeremiah Love and also don't draft a running back in the top 5, but that's not possible because I get my Notre Dame fandom and the Giants fandom combining into one, and I do think he's going to be amazing. Everything you said is correct. He's a home run threat. The way he scraps and scrapes and fights for every yard and just doesn't go down and then can blow you away with the speed. And he's a great pass catcher that really didn't get to show it off a lot at Notre Dame because they just needed him to run the freaking ball over guys. I think he's going to be awesome. But my God, if the Giants didn't learn from Dave Gettleman's mistakes of drafting Saquon Barkley at number 2 overall, if Joe Schoen, who really, I don't even, he shouldn't be making that many decisions as is anymore with John Harbaugh there, if they draft Jeremiah Love at number 5, I am going to explode because that is the last position that they need. With Cam Scadaboo coming back, and I know he had the gruesome injury, but oh my God, they need so many other positions than running back. So please, I hope that if he's still there by 5, that Jeremiah Love will be there at 7 for the Commanders to scoop him up and have him be running roughshod, maybe over over the New York Giants in the years to come. But at least it would be the smart thing for the Giants to do on paper. I think he's awesome, and I am biased, and so I love Jeremiah Love. And if he wasn't a running back, he'd probably be going number 1 overall. But I can't help, and Combs and Monty and Brad, normally doing the show with him every night, they know about this. I can't stop gushing over Caleb Downs here over the last several weeks. Yeah. The safety from Ohio State, the Swiss Army knife of college football. If he wasn't a safety, Cordell, I think I make the same argument. He's probably getting taken number 2 or number 3 overall in this draft. If he wasn't just 6 feet, if he was 6'3" or 6'4", he'd be going number 2 overall in this draft. But I think he's the next Kyle Hamilton, right? You cover the Ravens. You've seen what Kyle Hamilton does for Baltimore. He can come up and play at the line of scrimmage. Obviously, he can guard. He can, defend one-on-one. He can play zone. He can blitz. He can do everything. I think we're going to be looking back in 3 years when Caleb Downs is a first-team All-Pro. We're going to be saying, this guy fell to 7, 8, 9 in the draft. How is this possible? I think Caleb, and I think Mendoza's going to be great. I love Jeremiah Love, but I think Caleb Downs is ultimately going to have the best NFL career out of this entire draft class.
Nah, you're preaching to the choir when it comes to Caleb Downs, man. As much as I'm banging the drum for Washington to go Jeremiah Love, they also haven't had a safety since Sean Taylor. So I would love if they went and got Caleb Downs. They desperately needed a safety for a while, and he's another one that I think is a victim right now of Lion season. All these teams acting like teams are scared of him because of his injury history. I don't buy it. This dude is one of, if not the best player in this class. I completely agree.